when I heard about all this and I wanted to interview him, I was like, this guy is like the white Sergio. Hi, everybody. Here we have Terry today. Terry Strand, who's from the Chicagoland weightlifting or weightlifters. Terry and I have been communicating for many, many years regarding Bob Guider, regarding the whole Chicago scene, Sergio Oliva, and of course Bill Cino, who may he rest in peace, recently passed away. Um, Terry actually supplied me with a lot of the information that I used for the video, and so I thought it fit to interview Terry as he was probably one of the few people around nowadays that actually knew Bill the best, right? And yeah, I mean, I just want to hand it over to you, Terry. So um,
That's a mistake.
oh, what's the mistake?
No, that's fine. It's all good. I'm happy to do a little tribute to my friend for 60 years, Bill Cino. And I guess the little backstory is I first heard of him way back. I was in seventh or eighth grade. I started buying the muscle magazines, which blew me away. Here you could become a superhuman person with just workouts and eating. And my friends were all, that was great. Go to the Y. So Bill
What year
was,
was this?
this was 61.
61. Okay, cool.
It was 1961. I'm going to muffle the, I don't want to date myself. So that was 61. And then he was working out back in the day. And you see him in the magazines occasionally and at the gym. But the big thing was in 1964, the AAU, the Real Deal Mr. America contest was held at my high school, Lane Technical in Chicago. And that was the largest male school in America.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I attended that at 16 years old, and all my iron obsessed friends with iron fever, we were there, and we were just, our jaw dropped down to the floor. And I watched Bill Cino beat some guy named Sergio Oliva. I don't remember his name, but and for most muscular, which was even a more desirable title for than the overall because it was given for the gnarliest guy.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyhow, that was 64, and then I was 16. Then the following year, I loaded his I loaded his barbell for his world record bench AAU 198-pound class, 454, all clean, no bounce, no reps, no bench suits, no baloney, no screaming, yelling, histrionics, no smelling salts, with the 2-second pause. No. So anyhow, and then I got his autograph. Now, this is 60 years ago, 1965. He's very shy. I got it on the back of my ticket stub. Was his first contest was at, or first appearance was at Duncan, the iconic Duncan Y in Chicago, 1515 West Monroe. The home of everybody was anybody. Phil Grappaldi later on, who was the man with four legs, if you remember him. So let's see, so that was 65. And then in 69, he picked me up. We went to DePaul University to the Mr. America contest. And so then what happened after that, he, by 69, he was sort of done. He was in school, getting a master's, raising kids, fixing his house, fixing his car, and he got away from it a little bit. Now, up until that time, and this is going to be contentious, the trollers and haters, he was clean. He didn't take anything. And amazingly, he was on groceries. He no steroids, no supplements. Um, and he would say, I said, Billy, you use any supplements? He said, supplements. We're happy to have anything in the house. He would eat groceries. He came from a rough neighborhood. He lived at the corner of Bedlam and Flotsam and Jetsam and Squalor over there, Chicago. Public housing. His dad was not there really. He was sometimes in trouble. So,
Yeah.
long story longer, Bill just was happy to eat anything. He had the most basic of gyms. I mean, it was, none of this 12 kinds of cable crossovers. It was like you do your benches on the bench out in the locker room where you sit to change it was just old school iron.
Mm.
And then I'll say a quick word about his. Later on in February of 72, he started to use under the care of a medical doctor at Sayre Park, so a little testosterone. Now, but he wasn't on 14 cycles and 12 insulin and all that diuretics, all that insanity that we now have. And but see, to me, he had this original clean career from 60 to 66. And then he did his marriage thing. And then he went on a little bit under the doctor and he went right to powerlifting. And to me, the clean career was what was so fascinating. The master stuff he did later was, it was awesome. He did a bench what was it, 587, give or take?
579.
Right. And that was in 81, I believe, 81 or 82. So, and that was with a pause. That was with no suit. That was in his, a singlet, a wrestling singlet was just, nothing. And, no monolift, no baloney. They would do their squats off of rickety squat stands, not power racks.
Yeah. I
So
know the ones.
pardon me?
I know the ones. They just stand by themselves, two of them.
Yeah, and they're rickety. And
Yeah.
another interesting, Ronnie Coleman, who's very sick right now. I hope he gets better. You've seen the YouTube stuff of him squatting 800 pounds. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, he's on a bodybuilding diet. He's using squat stands, not even a power rack. He's
Yeah.
got he's got one or two spotters that if he missed it, it would take him. It'd go to the center of the earth.
Yeah. They get
So
crushed.
yeah, but anyhow, these are all superlatives that I notice about things. Like to this day, the greatest deadlift in my is over 1,000 pounds, and it's not as some strong man. It's was done on a power meet, and then he did an overhand grip without straps, over 1,000. There's 10 guys who can do over 1,000 now, but not like that. Nowhere near that. They got to have their cheering section, and get zapped with uranium and everything else. So anyhow, but lest I digress. So Bill, since he came up with tough situation in the housing projects, he wanted security. So he didn't really know what to do. He went and he got a degree in teaching, and a master's degree and so forth. And we actually went to the same college for a while. Everybody goes to Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago. It's like a teacher mill. But in any case, and he always worked out. He worked out. He never read any magazines, what Larry Pacifico was doing. He didn't care about that stuff.
Mm.
He just
Um,
was, yeah,
I wanted to start asking questions. If
yes,
you don't mind. So going back to when you just met him, you were a teenager, right?
yes. I met him when I was 16.
And did you ever train with Bill?
Oh, well, a couple of times we went to the gym together, but he was 8 years older than me. So I'm this teenage guy and he's this, Superman. But
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that you met him in the 60s. Were you both training at the Duncan at the time? Was it even Ope?
Yeah, I would get a guest pass and go down there, take two buses. It was in a kind of a rough neighborhood. And Bill, and every that was like the Gold's Gym of Chicago under the
Yeah.
tutelage of Bob Gaida,
Yeah.
another good friend of mine. So that was the answer to that.
Yeah. And so during the mid 60s, the late 60s, you had, well, even just during the 60s, you had Bob, you had Sergio, and Bill all training under the same roof. Is that right?
Well, at times,
Yeah.
Sergio and Bob trained together at Duncan. Uh, Cino came to Duncan sometimes. His home base was Sayre
Yeah.
Park, and then later on he went to Irving Park YMCA,
Okay.
and they're all very crude gyms. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, that's what I've read and heard. Now, people have compared Bill Cino's appetite very much to Sergio's. Would you state that's true?
yeah. When he went into masters powerlifting, if you could call it that, in February of '72, he told me, he said, I started smooth out. I got heavy because I was gobbling down. He said he always had a prodigious appetite. And Sergio told him, you got to eat everything. You got to get big.
Yeah.
So, and
See,
I
that
see,
that was like my question, like, would Sergio have influenced Bill Cino's form of eating?
not too much. Bill was a very independent guy. And I was a paramedic in Chicago, and Sergio was 2 blocks down. He was a police local cop. And I run into him at McDonald's. And you have two giant platters of God knows what. And he'd be shoveling it in. He had to stand back. And I'd say, hey, morning, Sergio. And he'd go, oh, hey, got to get big. And he'd keep, stuffing it in. So,
But
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 yeah, that was the days. Today the guys are they're weenies. They got it way out there.
yeah,
They're
true. But back then also McDonald's was, at least from what I understand, better quality food than what it is nowadays.
I could go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and Sergio didn't care. He just shoveling Bill.
Yeah, so I read as well that Bill would eat easily a family meal all by himself and then eat the leftovers of his own,
Yeah.
whatever his kids didn't eat either. So is that true?
Well, I never witnessed that, but I've heard that before. And he was like a Komodo dragon, man. He's on top of that stuff, chewing it out. And but just such a sweet guy, very quiet, smart
Mm.
gentleman, Mister Nice Guy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just want to continue with some questions now. Um, Another one is like you mentioned it earlier that well, in our conversations that he was one of the very first people to, well, I guess one of the few actually from the golden era to win titles in Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and bodybuilding. I mean, I can only name, really, in all honesty, one other person that did that, and that was Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he started off as an Olympic weightlifter, moved on to powerlifting and then bodybuilding. But top of my head, anyone else that there's no one else that I can think that ever did that. Um, Having said that, Arnold never did any world records. Bill did, right? Um, I mean, Sergio started with Olympic weightlifting, but he never got into powerlifting. He went to bodybuilding. Franco started with with boxing, went to powerlifting and then bodybuilding. Um, Ronnie Coleman did powerlifting, right? And
Yes.
then bodybuilding. Mike Menzer actually, no, he actually did Olympic weightlifting, but he never competed. Did also powerlifting, never competed, and did bodybuilding. But again, out of all the people we've just mentioned, the one that actually won significant titles was Bill, right? That's what made
Yeah,
his,
that's a good rundown. And a significant factor was Bill won, and nobody else I know of won national titles.
yeah,
So national powerlifting, national bodybuilding, and National Olympic lifting. It was the junior nationals, but there was nothing junior about the AAU junior nationals. So nobody's had three national titles that I
Yeah.
know of.
Yeah, as I said, like Arnold, I know he started off with Olympic weightlifting. I don't know if he ever won national titles. I know he would win regionals, and then he
Yes.
would move to powerlifting. There he won the powerlifting European title. So respect for that. But then he quickly moved on to bodybuilding. But again, um, n no one that I know of has done what Bill did. So that's
And you know how many people know that, Carlos?
yeah,
Nobody.
very. You
You
can
and me.
probably count them on your hand.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's that. And then the interesting thing, just as an aside, back in the day, you were supposed to be as strong as you looked and be
yeah.
as, be able to look as strong as you are. And we had the guys like Marvin Eater and Grimmick and so forth. Now, and then then you had the Joe Weirdo. I mean, Joe Weider champions, and they were all shaving their pecs, and they didn't care if they could deadlift their body weight. Larry Scott and all of, and I'm not throwing shade on them, but in Chicago, we were like, you're supposed to be kind of tough and be able to do anything, not just shave your, butt every 2 weeks. Like, oh, I can't say that. uh,
Well, you got to admit that I know that. I mean, if we're talking about Joe Weider, um, his crop of athletes, first of all, were heavily influenced by Joe and what he demanded because he had an audience. Let's face it, that was a bodybuilding audience that had a large percent of homosexuals, and so he wanted them to all be pretty boys, right? So we have to be honest here, and so yeah, I mean they were catering to what he wanted, but for that reason, you didn't have Bill Cino on the cover of any Joe Weider's magazines, right? I think he was more catered towards, I guess you could say, the more wholesome um, audience of strength and health and muscular development, which was Bob Hoffman's, of course. Although I don't think there was anything wholesome about Bob. At least that's what he portrayed.
oh,
Let's be
sure,
honest
sure.
again, right? It
Yeah.
was much more wholesome than Joe. Joe was, I guess, more blatant and didn't care, right? All he cared about was getting a bigger audience and beating Bob. Yeah, and a lot of money. Whereas Bob, at least, I have to admit, although he did many shady things too, at least he kept an image that was more wholesome to American values. So,
That's a fair statement. That's a good
yeah,
summary of Bob.
yeah. Um, so we've talked about Bill's achievements from in a very general manner, but I'm very interested in his Olympic weightlifting because I actually do Olympic weightlifting myself right now, right?
Mhm.
It's something I love, right? I do Olympic weightlifting and I plan to compete, I hope, next year in the Masters division and also in powerlifting. Not to win any national titles, just I just want to do it because it's always been a dream of mine.
It's fun. Yeah.
It's fun, yeah. Um, so from the achievements that you wrote to me, um, and I mean you did a great resume of Bill, and I've got it up here. You can't see it, but I've got it up. Um, from what I understand, his first proper Olympic weightlifting achievement was Illinois and Iowa champion. So that's state championship or regional.
That would be, well, we had something called Region 5, which was a couple parts of a couple states. So it would be state, interstate.
Hmm. Okay, so which of his Olympic titles, because I can only see that he did Olympic weightlifting up until 1962. Which of all of those that you sent me, Junior Mr. No, excuse me. Yeah, Junior Illinois Championship, Junior National. So you're talking his national championship was the Junior National Championship in 1962.
correct, AAU Junior Nationals, Olympic lifting, and that's when they also had the clean and press, and then they got rid of that in '72. So you're just going in for the snatch and the
Yeah.
quick lift and the jerk.
Do you recall what his lifts were at that event?
I'm sorry.
Do you recall what his lifts were?
No, but I'll tell you this: Bill never claimed to be an Olympic lifter. He would go in with this Irving Park Y because they needed the team points. So he'd go in and he to
Okay.
win. Oh, it was hilarious. He trained for about 3 weeks for to win the junior nationals. And,
Wow.
oh, he could, he everything was a power clean. It wasn't a
Yeah,
squat
okay.
clean or a split clean. It
All
was
right.
just he was from outer space.
Okay. So we have phenomenal strength. That's ridiculous. Um, yeah, from what I understand, he totaled about over 800.
It could be. I don't remember those early numbers.
Mm. It would sound about right, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
That's incredibly strong regardless. Um, then he moved on to bodybuilding. And as you mentioned, his highlight was the 64 most muscular at the Mr. America contest, which in all honesty, I mean, I've seen the photos. I have no idea how he didn't win. That's just ridiculous, right? Uh,
yeah.
but
Well, was it Val Vasily? For one, he was a York guy,
yeah,
and those guys held sway, so to speak.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, Bob was obviously also looking for something, and he saw it in him and not in Bill. Let's be honest.
yeah. It was a lot of politics, but
Yeah, it's a lot of politics.
and it's very subjective, of course.
Yeah,
So
that's true. I mean, there's no difference in that regard when you compare Bob's contests to Joe's. I mean, I think it was already well known who was going to.
it's funny. Yes,
It's true. Um, so he started powerlifting. I mean, that's what I find most amazing, that he was flipping from one iron discipline to another already between 1962. He had already won Mr. Chicago Park District and Mr. Illinois in bodybuilding in 62. Won the junior national championships in Olympic weightlifting, as you mentioned, training only 3 weeks. Insane. And then decides to do a world record bench press a few months later in 1963 in powerlifting at only 198 pounds. So as you said, I mean, this guy was just, he's like, when I heard about all this and I wanted to interview him, I was like, this guy is like I don't mean to offend anyone here, but he's like the white Sergio. Just
I
a,
like
a
that.
mutant.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's the only way I can put it, right?
yeah. That's funny. That's true.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm
like,
gonna I'm gonna circle back real quick to Joe Weider. Joe
yeah.
Weider would always wring his hands. Oh, the abuse of steroids. Did he ever test? In 60, I mean, this year is the 60th anniversary of the Mr. Olympia. Larry
Mhm.
Scott won it. Joe paid him a whopping $500 to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, we got the people are using steroids. Well, why didn't he test? He tested once or twice in '90 when the feds were after, they're cracking down on sports and people overdosing. And then that was it. He got Dr. Bob Goldman, who was supposed to be the drug czar. He never tested. Um, but all he would have had to say, and then I'll get off the subject, is tell his judging panel, listen, you want to award first place trophies, top trophies to guys like Zane, Labrada, Mohammed Makawi,
Yeah.
human sized guys, you know. But then nobody wants us to pay tickets for that. They want to see Dorian and Coleman and these other superhuman people.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but you just said it. I mean, you've got very influential people in bodybuilding over the years, over the history, whether it's Bob, whether it's Weider, Arnold, and now, I don't know really, but I mean, we only have Arnold nowadays. And although Arnold was trying to make a dent, one could say back in the late 2010s, preventing the bubble gut, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I mean, he can only say so much because at the end of the day, these are businesses for them. And you're
Yes,
right, you're right. I mean, obviously they're always thinking about their pockets, but at the same time, they can only influence the judges so much. And at the end of the day, it falls in the responsibility of the judges. And it's just I agree with you. It's a shame because it's not just, in my opinion, the grotesqueness of what has become bodybuilding, at least open bodybuilding. Um, but it's the effect on the athletes themselves, you know. I hate to
they don't care. You know, they
I
don't
hate to
care.
put it this way, but
Yeah.
every time you hear of a seriously famous bodybuilder dying, it makes its news around the world for a week or two. People talk about for a week or two how concerned they are, and then it's swept under the rug. And
Yes. Yes.
next, next. I mean, nothing's ever done about it, you know?
No. No.
Head to www.goldenerabook'em.com for the biggest range of classic old school bodybuilding books as ebooks, e-magazines such as Iron Man and Reg Park Journal, high quality bodybuilding posters of the golden era stars, merchandise and classic gymwear featuring Steve Reeves, Marvin Eder, John Grimmick, Reg Park, and many other golden era stars. For those wishing to build a classic physique, lose fat and build muscle, online training is also available. Collectibles such as rare autographed photos from the golden era stars are also available, and to collaborate, please get in touch. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Vince Gironda's approach to bodybuilding, his principles, and all these tips of wisdom that he has, I mean, there's so much stuff that probably hasn't been proven by science, and it will take science to prove or disprove Vince. But to be honest, these 3 books, I believe, which I call the Classic Physique Bundle, are the best books that Vince ever came out with. And they, of course, are the Wild Physique, the Master Series, and the Pro Series. Have a look at it this way. The Wild Physique, I believe, is like the ABCs of Vince Gironda's principles to bodybuilding. He teaches you the exercises and his principles. But how do you put them together? Well, the Master Series is a 14-month program of using all of these principles, all of the diets that Vince came out with, all of the exercises. And of course, the Pro Series was a book that he came out with later on, specially targeted for getting into competition. It's just these 3 books, as I call it, the Classic Physique Bundle, Vince's best work, and available, of course, at www.goldenerabook'em.com.